Hey, everybody, and welcome to Comics and Cinema. I'm your host, Alex Klein, and here we are, another live stream. Guys, I am so excited. Actually, I am almost too excited for this. So, we're going to actually move this live stream to tomorrow while I collect my nerves. No, I'm just kidding. Actually, we do have a lot to go over today, and I'm really pumped about it. First, being an interesting situation that I had today while perusing some physical media that we'll dive into in a second. But our agenda, I have a very special treat for everybody tonight. We've got a live unboxing of some comics that came in the mail today. So I do know what they are, but I've never seen them before. So we're gonna get that going. I've got our Marvel Unlimited picks for the week. So I did read through some Marvel Unlimited comics that came out yesterday, and we'll talk about that. Thank you guys about that camera. Logic coming in quick. Then we also have the 65th anniversary of 12 Angry Men, which we will talk a little bit about to celebrate. Your boy went and saw the first season of Ted Lasso this week, which was long overdue. I'm very excited to talk about it. And then we will get to the main event, which is Everything Everywhere All at Once, which kind of feels like this episode to begin with the amount of things that we have to talk about. So, with that said, let me dive into this story. So many of you may know this. If not, and if it's not apparent by my background or by the stories you've heard, I like physical media. I'm a fan. You could say that I'm a disc snob. Take your pick, but I love physical media. I like having an actual disc that I can put into my Xbox or my Blu-ray player, and I get the best quality. It's always going to be better than streaming. But I also recognize that it's really nice to just have HBO Max and to put that stuff up. So I've been in kind of a war with myself of, do I continue with physical media? And it's not been an easy war because I plan on continuing with physical media. But today was a big one because Spider-Man No Way Home came out today, and it on physical copy. And so I went and waited in line at Best Buy for the Steelbook because I was not able to pre-order it on Best Buy. It sold out almost immediately. So I thought to myself, okay, well, Spider-Man is worth it. One of my favorite characters. I'm going to go wait in line at Best Buy. And so I did, and they didn't have any copies at Best Buy either. And so instead of buying a physical copy, just the regular version, I'm deciding to wait. I'm going to wait because typically those they come on sale. I get that Spider-Man's a popular character, but eventually there's always some sort of sale on Amazon where the price drops to like $15. So I'm choosing to wait. I'm bummed that I didn't get a Steelbook. That's actually the first MCU movie that I've not gotten a Steelbook for. So I'm dealing with it. I'm going to be okay. And yes, I see Stevie's in the chat too, my brother. What's up? Hey, everybody. So let's dive into this unboxing. I'm super excited about this. So for those of you listening on podcast format, I am currently cutting into this box. And if you don't believe me, here's the razor. Check it out on YouTube. But I'm really excited, guys, because there's a really cool one in this order. Okay, so we'll see. My wife said that everybody loves a good unboxing video, so I'll try not to I have to show it, right? Okay. I use Midtown Comics, 35% off of pre-orders. Can't beat that. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. We're just going to jump straight into this. So I pre-ordered this like last summer. This is the X-Men Omnibus from Jonathan Hickman. So this covers issues 1 through 21 of X-Men. This is actually the direct market variant cover. I'm trying to be professional with this, but this is just gorgeous. I am so excited. This was one of my favorite covers of the entire run, and for them to put this on the front of this hardcover, I can't believe it. But again, this was an incredible run. If you guys are a fan of Jonathan Hickman or anything X-Men related, I would highly recommend it. I cannot wait to dive into that. We've also got another trade paperback that is not Marvel related. So hold your horses. Don't throw the tomatoes just yet. What do we have here? Transformers Beast Wars. This is issues 1 through 6. I actually had the issues themselves, and I liked it so much that I purchased the collected version. I'm super excited. Again, this was supposed to come out like 3 months ago, so sometimes it takes a while for those things. All right. I now have, if any of you follow me on my podcast, I do explain that I've kind of calmed down in my comic book purchases. I don't buy as many because I buy these collected editions now. But we've got some pretty cool ones here today. So this is a facsimile edition of the Amazing Spider-Man 238. So this was, I believe, the first appearance of Hobgoblin. Facsimile editions of comics are essentially complete reprints, ads and all, of these comics. So as you can see, these are the old ads from when this came out, all the way in here. I mean, they even have the like bolt. You can order, if you wanted, you can order a free T-shirt with a Pro Am 24. Are you kidding me? Take me back, right? Take me back to Stranger Things, Stranger Times. We've got a gorgeous variant cover of Marauders, issue number 1. This is by Peach Momoko. That is Psylocke on the front cover. Brand new story. They had Jerry Duggan writing this for a while, but then he moved away, and now we've got a new writer on this. I'm really excited to dive in. And then the final one, which is honestly, I'm so excited for this, is Immortal X-Men by Kieran Gillen, who's doing the Eternals run. Apparently, this comic plus the Eternals plus the Avengers are all going to be in a giant event series this summer called, I believe it's called, it's Avengers, X-Men, and Eternals Judgment, I believe what it is, Judgment Day. You might have to correct me on that. But look at this. It's a wraparound cover. So it's got this, you guys see the play on Jesus on here? I don't know who they're, actually the Jesus seat is empty. So I think they're being as respectful as they can. But those are the comics that I got this month. So again, nothing too crazy. Again, I'm saying that to my wife. To everyone else, this is awesome. But from there, we're going to dive into some recommendations for, I just saw Maya's comment there. Did you say Karen Gillan? Very close. Kieran Gillen. Basically the exact same. They may even be from the exact same town. I have no idea. Don't quote me. Marvel Unlimited releases comics every Monday, 3 months after they've come out in physical print, which is a really good deal, guys. So if you're wanting to get into comics, you don't know where to start, just get a Marvel Unlimited subscription. And I wish they were paying me. They're not. It's super reasonable. I think it's like $69 a year. And one comic issue these days is $4, $3.99, or usually now $4.99. So you're making your money almost immediately. You have access to their entire library, but then they add these new comics every week. And so again, three months ago, these comics came out in real time, and now they're here on the app. So that's another reason why I've kind of declined my physical purchases, is because I can get them here, and then if I really like it, I'll buy the collected edition. So the ones that I read this week that came out, the newest issue of Captain Marvel by Kelly Thompson, which was interesting. We're one issue away. They're in this thing called The Last Marvels, which is, it's like a fight between all of the Marvels. It's pretty interesting. I've been entertained with it. There's a new issue of Black Widow that came out, issue number 13, also by Kelly Thompson. And no mistake there why we're mentioning multiple Kelly Thompson issues this week. It's almost perfect. It's almost like we've got something planned with Kelly Thompson later this month, so we'll see. Keep that on the DL. We also have a really cool new series I'm saving to read all at once. It's a mini series, Elektra, Black, White, and Blood, which is a really cool anthology series they've been doing with multiple characters. They're about to do it with Moon Knight. They did it with Carnage, where all of the art is in black and white and red for the blood. And so it's usually very violent characters. So I'm looking forward to that one. There's, and so there's also a new issue of Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man issue number 84, where Spider-Man has to deal with Doc Ock. And I'm loving this run right now. It's the Beyond series, and it's actually been Ben Reilly as Spider-Man for a while. Again, loving it, really enjoying it. Shang-Chi issue number 7 is out. Brand new arc getting started, dealing with his mom. And super excited for this because the series is very different from the movies, where his parents don't exactly have the same names. Their backstories are a little different. His sister is different. But we learn about Ta Lo in this issue. So I was like, oh, okay, now we're starting to get maybe a little bit that they're trying to pull from the movies, which is cool. The final issue of Inferno by Jonathan Hickman is out this week. So for those of you that were waiting to listen to that episode of Comics and Cinema, you can now finish this series and go back and listen. Also, new issue of Thor issue number 20. Right now, they're currently doing a series called The God of Hammers, which we find out in this issue. I won't spoil who the God of Hammer is. I was not expecting it, but it was pretty shocking. We also have the final issue of The Darkhold, which has been about Scarlet Witch and Doctor Doom. I enjoyed this final issue. All the issues in between seemed kind of like a waste of time, but I'm very curious to see where they're going to take Wanda next. And I wonder if this kind of just spawned out of WandaVision. And then the final one is the newest issue of X-Men by Jerry Duggan, issue number 6. We learn about a new character named Captain Krakoa, who I think I know who it is, but we're not exactly 100% sure. So, stick with it. The art is amazing. Pepe Larraz has been absolutely phenomenal. So, that is that for comics. Let's dive into a little bit of cinema and TV. So, like I said, before we dive into some of the meatier topics, I wanted to give a shout out to one of the greatest movies of all time, which is 12 Angry Men. So, hang on a minute. Close. I imagine close, but no cigar. There we go. Okay, so 12 Angry Men. Really amazing movie. It's in black and white, but if you can get past that, trust me, it's worth it. It's a Criterion film. It is a really good story. It's actually reading it, it's one of the first stories cinema-wise of a situation like this where the movie takes place almost entirely in the jury deliberation room. And so what happens is a young Puerto Rican male is being accused of killing his father, and he's on trial, and they are deliberating whether to sentence him to death. And so it's 12 angry men because it's a very hot day in New York City. So there's a lot of sweat, a lot of anger. But Henry Fonda plays the main guy, and it's one of the coolest things ever. I mean, I almost don't want to spoil it, but this film is 65 years old. So it basically, he is able to convince almost the entire room, I believe, to kind of changing their minds. Because initially they go in, and this movie is really kind of a look at prejudice in America, which again was new. This took place before the Civil Rights era, starting in 1957 when this movie came out. But they're sitting there, and every single person except for Henry Fonda all wants to put this guy to death. And it's a kid. It's like a teenager. And but he says, like, hey, let's take a minute, and maybe we can look at these facts. Let's see if there's any reasonable doubt that we can look at. And eventually, as the movie goes on, he starts winning people over, which is just so cool. And so by the end of it, again, I won't reveal exactly what happens at the end, but it's just a really cool film for its time. And I was reading up on it, and actually Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor cites this film as the reason why she went into law, which is really, really cool. So I'm looking here at a comment. Let's see what this is from Anthony. Can't wait for the review of Anyone in Everything, all the time, all over the place, all at once, in the same place as the first place that everyone was in. That's got to be the sequel. I can't wait for the sequel if that's the case. But like I said, 12 Angry Men, I believe, is available on HBO Max. I would highly recommend checking it out. The movie is only 96 minutes long, so hour and a half of your time. But when you leave afterwards, you'll be reborn in a sense, because I think we're in a day and age now where we can watch a lot of that on TV, not necessarily jury deliberations, but when you see courtroom dramas and all that sort of stuff, it's just really cool to have that in our time. Paz Vizsla portrait in the back. Oh, right, yeah, exactly. You could call it Boba Fett too, but it is the Mandalorian. So we'll clear that up here. No more guessing on that end. But that puts us in a good spot now. So, like I said, this week, and by this week I mean the last 2 days, I watched the first season of Ted Lasso. And oh my gosh, guys, where have I been? What's been happening? Why didn't someone tie me to a chair and not eyes wide shut, Clockwork Orange my eyes to make me watch this? It was awesome. I can't wait to watch the second season. I watched 5 episodes and then another 5 episodes. They're so, you eat them up like candy. It's crazy. And I even have, I put that on here too. Ted Lasso. And I think this is a perfect photo too, because this is most of my favorite characters in the show. My favorite character besides Ted, 100% is Hannah or Rebecca. Hannah Weddingham plays Rebecca right here on to his left. It might be to your right, but she was phenomenal. Brett Goldstein as Roy Kent was amazing. So was Brendan Hunt as Coach Beard. and then Juno Temple as Keely Jones, Jeremy Swift as Higgins, calling out to Nick Mohammed as Nathan Shelley. It was interesting too. A lot of people pegged this as a sports show. And to me, honestly, it didn't really feel like a sports show. I mean, obviously it was about a sport, but I noticed on multiple instances that you never really see them play soccer. There's a couple of moments where you see them practice and a couple of moments in the game where you watch them play the game. But for the you never, and I was thinking that maybe that would happen in the season finale, where like, okay, the finale is like one long soccer game. That would have been kind of cool. But even then, we didn't see a full game because it's not about the sport. And I think that's the whole point of this show. It's about just being a good person. And I was reading some reviews that obviously are, a year and a half old at this point. But this show came out in 2020. And everything that was going on in 2020 at that point, this was like the dose of medicine that I think America needed, and maybe the world even needed. So I can totally see why it kind of swept the Emmys last year. And again, I'm excited to tune in for season 2 to see them maybe sweep the Emmys this year too. So many just standout moments. I loved, and I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but like the thinking like a goldfish, I thought was really cool. I love that whole idea, and I think that's something that you can apply to any piece of your life where you get upset about something. And it was even better in the finale when they don't win, and he says to them, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he says, but he says, there's the only thing worse than losing or dealing with a loss is dealing with a loss alone. And I want you all to look around at each other in this room and be grateful that you don't have to go through this alone. And then also that, these feelings don't last forever. And I think we've talked about that on some other prior episodes too, but just this idea that, it's okay. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to not be perfect all the time. You just got to get back up and try again the next day. And so I loved that mantra. He says, go be sad today, and then tomorrow be a goldfish, and let's forget about it and move on and move forward, which is just such a good message to literally anybody, anywhere. I loved his line about the harder you work, the luckier you get. And I'm seeing now Brian says, what do you mean they don't win? And that was actually the biggest twist of the season for me, because they had that really cool showing of making that point to tie the game up, and then almost immediately the other team scores another point, and I was like, oh wow, that was quick. But yeah, so I loved that. I love Rebecca Welton so much because I think she really embodied just a really strong female character, and something that we have not seen, I at least have not seen in a really long time in a sports type film. But then the other good thing about her character is you start to see these cracks forming around her that is just almost impossible to avoid when you're around somebody like Ted Lasso. And that was a great line too, when he comes in at the very beginning and Roy Kent's getting upset at him, and he looks at Coach Beard and he goes, man, he is going to hate it when he starts loving us. And he was like, yeah, man, I know. And that, I took that quote directly to Rebecca, because she purposely hires him to coach this team into failure, just only because he's not a soccer coach. And I just thought that was the coolest thing in the world, where he's like, I'm gonna prove you wrong. I'm gonna prove everybody wrong. And I'm just gonna be myself. I'm gonna motivate these players. And I thought, man, is there anything Ted can't do? And that's when we got to the spot where we're dealing with his marriage, which was incredibly sad. And I loved that we didn't get to see so much of it, that it was very peripheral, in that sense, where there was a lot of questions about it, like what drove them to this spot where they're wanting this much distance. And they never really dive into it, except for a couple moments Ted kind of shares some stories about it, but that really hit hard. Like I felt really bad for him, and at the same time though, it was one of those things where it's almost a good check-in with your own friends and family, because you've got somebody who every moment that you're around them, they're absolutely happy and just motivating everybody, and an amazing person like Ted is, but you don't realize what's going on behind the scenes, and that he's really hurting. So really good message to reach out to those that you love, make sure they're doing okay. And I mean, even that scene, and that was the turning point where I was like, obviously Rebecca likes Ted. Like, he grew on her almost immediately, especially when those biscuits showed up. And again, loved that he is the one who made those biscuits. But it was, I think, that moment when they were at the bar, at the dance, the karaoke place, and she comes out and comforts him. And that was the moment where I was like, okay, they're friends. There's really nothing that's going to tear this apart, because you just see this. She goes from being so tough and having such a tough outer shell because of the hurt that she's been given by her ex-husband, who I'm gonna see if I find the guy on IMDb, but he was incredible at being a piece of human garbage, and I hated every moment that he was on camera, and especially with the whole new Rebecca. Oh, but no, it's actually old Rebecca. Like, that was soul crushing. But the fact that she just kept getting up, and I mean, she, in a sense, she almost embodied the goldfish ideal, because yeah, you know that she's hurting probably 24/7, but she did a really good job of, something happened to her, she would cut, you could tell in her eyes that she was freaking out, and then she would kind of let it go. And Kara, I'm going to call your comment out here too. Spotlight on panic attacks is phenomenal, especially for those that have them. 100%. When Ted was freaking out, I didn't know how to react. I was like, oh no, what's happening? Is he going to go up on stage and say something, or, whatever it was? And I love that he just gets up and leaves. Like, he didn't want to cause a scene, just got out of there and goes and crouches outside. But the close-ups on his hands as he was shaking, and oh, it just, my heart went out for him. But then you see that almost similar thing. It wasn't, identical. Obviously, everyone deals with their stress differently. But when is it Rupert? When her ex-husband tells her that the new Rebecca is pregnant, and she just kind of stands there and stares, and she doesn't say anything. But then her tears start forming in her eyes. They never come out of her eyes. That was an completely deserved the Emmy Award for that. I thought was phenomenal. I got choked up when that happened, because how dare him just show up like an absolute jerk, especially after getting totally destroyed by Ted and darts. Like I said, I think she ended up being my favorite character, just because I'm a sucker for that story of somebody who's very, very hard and has a very hard heart, and they open themselves up to everyone. I mean, even in that case, and I think someone called that out in the comments too. Yeah, that was Brian, when Rebecca comes clean and he hugs her, was so good. That's the lesson, and that's another huge lesson from the show that we've got to take away from this, is we're living in a culture right now, and we're living in a society where people get agitated very quickly, and things that people say can be taken the wrong way. And obviously we need to watch our words and be careful, but never underestimate the power of an apology, and both giving an apology and receiving an apology. Speaking from experience, as someone who's apologized a lot, it's very easy to do. It's a very easy thing to say, I'm sorry, I screwed up, I messed up. But it's a lot easier to say it almost than it is to receive it, because I feel like a lot of times people who are being apologized to, maybe they're not in the headspace to accept that apology. Maybe it's too soon. But I just thought it was the way that they showed a good kind of acceptance of an apology like that with Ted, I thought was amazing. And so, him going and giving her a hug and saying, hey, it's okay. When people love each other, they find a way to get through it. And I just love that. We're getting another really great example of different types of love, right? Obviously, they have no romantic connections that I know of. I haven't gotten to season 2 yet, but I saw that exact same sort of love between him and Keeley as well, which was one of my other favorite characters in the show for the same reason. They killed the female representation in the show. I thought the female characters got some of the coolest storylines in terms of rising up and learning things. And in this case with her, she was kind of at the very beginning in that first episode. Again, me knowing nothing about the show, I was like, oh, geez, here's, the arm candy of the famous football player. And I think it was within one episode, maybe two, that I was like, oh, she's actually 100 times better than he is. And she knows it. But you see her kind of struggling to own that. And eventually, as the season goes on, and I truly believe because of Ted's help and kind of motivation to her, and then even more so because of Rebecca, she becomes this more powerful person, which I just thought was so cool. Going from being arm candy in the first episode to now she's the the promoter kind of for the football club, which is really cool. And her thing in the hotels when she's on the TVs, I thought was fantastic. That bit with Roy Kent where he's like, I've been thinking about you a lot lately. And she's like, oh, why? He's like, because I see you on my TV every night when I'm trying to go to sleep, which was great. But yeah, no, so her and Rebecca, I thought were just the absolute dynamic duo. Okay, Brian's got a great question here too. Lion or panda? I'd say look, we hadn't had an episode on it yet, and we will be talking about it when we talk about our mainline movie here. But I loved Turning Red, so I probably would go with Panda. But I loved that argument, and even that scene was amazing because you look at it and you see Rebecca, who's like, I'm not dealing with this. I don't want to be a part of this. And then, he says, yeah, I think it'd be a panda. And she's like, are you crazy? What are you talking about? It should be a lion. And it was like, you care. You actually care. So it was really cool to see her cracks form throughout the season like that. I thought it was British. I was going to say, I think they call it series, but this was an American show. So I thought that was great. Also, another great example of humility too, and of inclusion was Nate. Coolest, one of my favorite scenes is in that first episode where he says, "What's your name?" And he's like, "Oh, it doesn't really matter." He's like, "No, I asked. Tell me your name." And he says it's Nate, and then he knows his name, and Nate just loses his mind that this coach of a football team knows his name. And that's something, again, a great message that we can always carry on to, don't underestimate the power of anybody. And especially when you're in an organization like that, where every single piece of help matters. And you think about it in the exact same way as like making a movie, right? All the way down to the people that you never see on screen that are behind the scenes, they all matter. And so to have somebody at the top of the house recognizing that and remembering people's names, which is huge, was awesome. And Kara's got a great call out here too with small acts of kindness. I totally agree. This show was basically small acts of kindness. They could have called the title of that, each episode being a small act. I'm trying to think if there's some other great things. Obviously, Nathan was hilarious when he gets that speech he gets to give to the team the day of the game, and he's basically dissing everybody. That was amazing. Huge amount of character growth from him, going from that to where he didn't even want to say anything because he was nervous that he'd either throw up or that people would, laugh at him, was just amazing. I thought that was great. Coach Beard doesn't say much, but everything that he does say was super powerful. So I thought he was hilarious. He reminded me of the classic coach that you see on the sidelines at most of the football games that looks almost identical to him that you never see speak. So I almost wonder if that was kind of a play on that. Let me know in the comments, actually. I'm curious. Was this based on real life? Because I'm assuming it wasn't, especially with these characters, because I'm looking at Roy Kent now, another great example of lessons to be learned in terms of anger, which was really cool to see in terms of him kind of being the big brother of the group, which I loved. That scene where he goes to coach and asks him to step in because people are picking on Nate. Thank you, Brian. It is not based on real life. When he goes to pick on Nate and he's like, hey, you need to make him stop. He was like, no, I agree. They shouldn't be picking on Nate. And he's like, okay, well, then are you going to do something? He was like, no, I'm not going to do something because, again, if the teacher steps in, the kid's still going to get picked on and picked on even worse. And I just loved how aloof and uncaring Roy Kent seemed to be, but he did such a good job. Brett Goldstein just absolutely crushed it at the internal realization of being right. And he's the kind of person that would rather take the easy road. He doesn't want to deal with his feelings. He doesn't want to talk. But every time they'd be like, kind of, this is the right thing to do. And he'd just go, oh, yeah, and then he'd go do it. But he was so upset about it. Like, I loved that. Nice shout out here from Maya. That's why learning people's love languages is so important, which we will be chatting about on Thursday. That would be for Nerdy Girls After Dark. Tune in on Thursday. They kicked absolute butt last week. But it's true. I mean, you get to this spot where, and it's funny, it kind of goes to a lot of the characters in this show, but like people just want to be understood. And if you take the time to actually get to know people and understand them, understand what they want, it goes for miles. Like Roy Kent and Keeley, and then even with Jamie, Jamie Tart, played by Phil Dunster. I hated Jamie. He was such a showboat. He was an absolute annoyance, but he kicked butt. And so, how do you deal with somebody like that? Well, Roy dealt with him the same way that I've seen on many football movies, where he gets benched. But I loved by the end of it where he was like, "What's going on?" Ted's doing these mind games with me, where he's still speaking very highly of me, even though I don't work on the same team as him anymore. But that just again goes to that same thing because he knows that based on the curse episode, that Jamie had a really tough childhood, and no, his father was never there for him. So for him to be there for him, to send him the little toy soldier and congratulate him on the extra pass, it just that show wrapped up so perfectly, and I'm surprised there's even another season, but I'm glad because I need it. Brian's got a comment here. Solve a bet. Did you watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer? I did not. I've not seen that show. And then Kara, also great comment here. Roy Kent, figuring out how to share and understand emotions and feelings. It really is. Again, this is something, it's so strange to me. It's something that I feel like everyone should be talking about, everyone should be doing, but you never see this sort of stuff on TV. And you kind of see it in sports movies. I mean, that's one of the reasons we love them, right? You got the tough coach, whether that's Kevin Costner or Denzel Washington or whoever that is. You've got this tough person with a tough exterior who the team breaks down the boundaries and suddenly they're a good person again. And yeah, that's nice, but that doesn't happen every day. That's not an everyday sort of occurrence. And the things that are shared in Ted Lasso felt much more everyday, much more relatable, and by definition, I thought better because again, it was really cool. So, like I said, I loved the show. Man, I'm just trying to think. There's so many other cool bits and moments from here. I don't think we'd be able to cover them all, but I know Brian has covered them in some prior podcast episodes, so go check that out. But with that said, let's move into the main event. So I'm going to get back to my pictures here. So Everything, Everywhere, All at Once, which seems to be a movie that no one has heard about anywhere at all, which is totally fine because tonight my goal is to get you all to go see this movie in theaters because I get that it's only April. I get that no Marvel movies have come out. For the Marvel fans, this is my top movie of the year. And it's going to be really hard for another movie to touch this because, and I would think theoretically, the only thing that's going to come close to it would be Doctor Strange because that movie also deals with multiverses. But this movie just absolutely kills it when it comes to the multiverse. So let's dive in and start breaking down the cast real quick. So it's directed by the Daniels, which are two Dans. We got Dan Kwan and Dan Scheinert. They did Swiss Army Man. If you've ever seen that movie. If you haven't, you should check it out because it's just about as insane as this film. This almost feels like their magnum opus, though, which is pretty crazy because this is their second feature film. And I'm not surprised because it's an A24 movie. So as you guys know, A24, they produce some of the best films ever. You got Moonlight and The Witch, Ex Machina, Hereditary. The list goes on and on. Green Knight. I mean, pick your poison. There's so many great films. And so when I heard this movie was coming out, saw that it was A24, also saw that it dealt with the multiverse. I completely forgot, though, who the producers of this film were. So you guys think you can guess? I'll give you a hint. I mentioned some of their movies just a little bit ago, and I'll pull it up here real quick. But produced by the Russo brothers, Anthony and Joe Russo. But that's not all. Also produced by Sarah Halley Finn as a co-producer. There's a bunch of other producers in there as well. But how cool is that we've got three Marvel veterans producing this film, which to me says a lot about this movie, especially because she's not. Oh, she did. She casted it. She did casting too. So huge shout out to Sarah for casting one of the best performances I've seen this year. I think I accidentally grabbed a baby photo. For those of you that don't know, this is Short Round from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. That is Ke Huy Quan, who plays the father in this movie, Waymond Wang. Again, if you look at his IMDb, he's been in a few things. He's been in some TV. He's been in some kind of lower budget movies, but nothing like this. So huge comeback, I guess you could say. And I loved that. Michelle Yeoh as Evelyn Wang, the main character. I'd be curious that this might be her best performance that I've ever seen of her. And I've seen a few. Obviously, there's some movies of hers that I haven't seen, but she's just operating on all cylinders, and we'll dive into that. Stephanie Sue playing Joy Wang, who is the daughter of Waymond and Evelyn. Joy, for those of you that may not know, was also in another movie. And as I was watching it, I was like, I know I've seen her from something. What is it that I've seen her from? She's in Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings. So that's two Shang-Chi performances in this film, which is awesome. And then we also there's a guy who's very barely in this movie, but I had to call him out. His name is Biff Whiff, and he plays Rick. But you may know him from I Think You Should Leave as Santa Claus. And I really wanted to put a GIF in here, but apparently StreamYard only allows up to 3 MB, and it was 7. But he says he's talking. I'm watching the GIF right now. Even if I do a bad job, they've got to give me that other 2 mil. He says even if I'm offered one more movie, they got to give me that $2 million. He just plays a really ornery Santa Claus, and he was absolutely hilarious doing it. So everything all at once. It's a long movie. It's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but I guarantee you, you will not feel like it is a long movie. It flew by. And I think part of the reason why it flew by, not just because the story itself is very interesting, but it's also because the editing and the camera work is very fast. And that's part of the reason why, because you're dealing with multiverses. And so I don't know. I'm going to see how it looks when we're watching Doctor Strange, but there's a scene in this movie where, it's Michelle Yeoh's face and she's kind of going through multiverses, and it's like quick cuts of her same face wearing different clothing and different backgrounds. It felt like 100 or maybe 30, 40, whatever that is, in a short span of time, just quickly going. And I just kept thinking to myself, this is incredible. They did that with other people in the film. Are we going to see 40 different Doctor Stranges? I'm not sure. But again, I feel bad even comparing it to the Marvel movie, just a Marvel movie, because it's just, like I said, it's in a dimension of its own. So the story goes, Evelyn Wang, and I won't spoil too much of this, guys, because I really want you to check it out. What's nice is there's really not any spoilers to it other than actual bits and pieces of the movie, which, again, I won't dive into. I'm just going to talk about some of my favorite parts that hopefully will get you guys excited to go see it. So Evelyn and Wayman Wang, they are a Chinese family living in, I believe, Sacramento. I think it's California, but they own a laundromat. And so it's just this story of them kind of trying to make ends meet. They're being audited by the IRS because they've been claiming a bunch of extra things that aren't work related on their taxes, apparently. And we get a really amazing performance by Jamie Lee Curtis as the tax auditor named Deidre. And she kills it. And you get to this point where in the beginning you hate her, but then by the end of it, because you've seen her in multiple universes, you start to really like her and you start to sympathize with her. And that's, I think, one of the pieces and magical pieces of this film, is that there's a lot of sympathy to be had, especially around the human experience. So that's part of it. They're getting audited. She's got this daughter, Joy, who brings her girlfriend with her to meet their grandfather, who is James Hong, the famous James Hong, who kills it in this movie too, basically playing the grandfather. And we get, like I said, a very similar story to Turning Red, where you see the generational trauma that's passed down from the grandfather to the mother to now the daughter. And it's that same sort of trauma of, you need to be perfect. You need to be exactly what I want you to be. You need to find a job that's going to be super successful. Obviously, the mom and certainly the grandfather are not approving of her daughter's same-sex relationship, which is super sad. And the daughter is obviously super frustrated about it. And there's just a lot of stuff going on. Everything, right? Everything is going on. And the movie's actually broken up into 3 parts, which is cool. So they do a part 1 that's everything, and then a part 2 that's everywhere, and then a part 3 that's all at once. And if you think they can't pull that off, they 100% do, in terms of the themes of each of those parts of the movie, which was just amazing. And so I'll briefly just explain what the situation of the film is. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but they're at this IRS office, and they're getting audited, and her husband, looks like he's about to turn into a different person, basically. And he writes her this note and says, like, you need to meet me. And then they do this in the elevator. He's like, you need to meet me in the broom closet. And he basically explains to her that he is another version of himself from a different universe that is part of this multiverse. And they're trying to find and destroy the villain of the film, who is Jobu Tapaki. And there's a lot of, I mean, I can't even get into the amount of jokes and funny things that happen with this that are also on top of that very serious. But Jobu Tapaki was an amazing villain. One of the coolest, she was able to, she's basically got full control of all the multiverses of everything. So there's a really cool scene. I won't share the whole scene, but there's a part where she's fighting somebody and she like punches them and their head explodes into glitter, and then the next person, she like turns them into an animal, or so, like basically can manipulate reality because she has control over all of the multiverses. And so the whole point is we need to stop her, otherwise she's going to destroy every single universe. And so what ends up happening is they choose this particular Evelyn, this Michelle Yeoh, has been chosen because in every other multiverse, she has become this amazing, accomplished person. There's a multiverse where she's an actress, and it's almost like a love letter to Michelle Yeoh's career, because in one of them she's this kung fu actress, super famous. There's another one where she's a hibachi chef, and there is it's not the biggest spoiler because you're going to want to see this. Those of you know, we talked about in the last episode, I love a good rat story. And in this episode, there's a scene where she's trying to explain to her family this whole multiverse situation. She's like, the way that happens is, and I'm sure this is super confusing, go see the movie. You wear these headsets and you have to do a certain thing. So really random, really weird, and super weird. But in doing so, that triggers something in the multiverse to pull the skills of your other self to you. So as an example, for me, in another multiverse, I'm a person who's super tall. This isn't going to play well, but I need to use this tall person. So I've got the headset on, and it would say that I need to punch a hole in the wall. And so the minute that I punch the hole in the wall, the headset lights up green, they tap it, and then I would grow in height, which was really cool to see. So she's having to do these really random, weird things, but she gets, kung fu skills. And guys, the action in this movie is some of the best action that I've ever seen. It's John Wick level action. It's insane because every single one, there's an instance where she's pulling skills from a version of herself where she's a sign twirler. And in the fight, she's using a riot shield and using it like a sign twirling to just kill all these people that she's fighting. Absolutely insane. And so, okay, in this universe, so she's trying to explain to her family. She's like, okay, it's like she goes, it's like that movie where it's like another version of yourself is kind of like in your hair and pulling your hair and making you do certain things. And it's like the movie, you know what I'm talking about. It's the Pixar movie with the raccoon in the hair. It's called, she's like, the daughter's like, wait, what are you talking about? And it's like the classic mom joke of like, what movie is that? She's like, no, yeah, it's like the raccoon. It's called Raccacoonie. And she's like, Mom, you mean Ratatouille? She's like, no, I think it's Raccacoonie. There's a multiverse where she is a hibachi chef, and there's another hibachi chef who has a raccoon in his hat. And like it ends up actually being an important piece of the plot. That is the level of care this movie has, and that is the level of absolute epicness that this movie has. And so you've got that piece. There's hundreds of different multiverses where she's pulling different versions of herself and those skills into her. But then even cooler than that is, so that's like everything. That's the everything portion. And then the everywhere portion is when she finally kind of confronts Jobu, and she gets taken and experiences all of these other multiverses. So instead of everything happened to her, she goes everywhere, and you start seeing all of this insanity. I mean, there's a piece where she's a rock, and her and Jobu are rocks, and they're just talking, and it's just text on the screen. There's a universe where her and uh, Jamie Lee Curtis as Deidre are together as a couple, but they're in a universe where everyone has hot dogs for hands. And yeah, absolute insanity, but it all makes sense and it all connects to everything. And that's when you get to the third part of All at Once, where it just all everything kind of converges into this one moment. And the again, like I said, I won't spoil it. The storyline follows Turning Red quite a bit, not in the Turning Red portion, but in the mother-daughter sort of relationship. But it's no less powerful having watched both of those films. It still made me tear up in theaters. So like I said, it was phenomenal. We need to talk though about Wayman Wang. So again, for those of you that are fans of Indiana Jones and remember Short Round, he is basically the same character, which I thought was really cool because I didn't know he was in the movie. And as the movie was playing for a while, I'm sitting there like, this is wild. I know I've seen this before. Like I've seen this type of performance. I was like, no, his voice sounds really familiar too. And I was like, no way. Is that Short Round from Indiana Jones? And it turned out that it was. He does such an amazing job. And you get almost that same sort of Ted Lasso view where Michelle Yeoh's character is very pessimistic. She has been broken by her father. And you've got Wayman's character, and he is super kind and super positive. He puts googly eyes on everything, and he even tells her, he said, there's a line in the film, and it's a bit. My brother called it out too. Gorgeous shots that reminded of a Wong Kar-wai film, In the Mood for Love, where it's the multiverse where Michelle Yeoh was an actress, and she, instead of going with her husband, chooses to not ever date him, and so they meet again later. And she's like, maybe we should try again now that she knows the other universes. And he says something like, there's no room in the world for a silly man, because he doesn't want his heart to get broken. But he really is a silly man in this movie in the best way, just making silly jokes and trying to be as nice. And yeah, Stevie just called it out, Wong Kar-wai is the goat. But they called out so many other there's so many Asian artist influences in this movie. There's obviously Jackie Chan in the fighting styles, but it just, again, it felt like something that I've never seen before, but at the same time something that I've always wanted. Maya, sounds like the I Am episode from Lovecraft Country. It's crazier than that episode, and that episode was crazy and beautiful and amazing. But this one, just the sheer volume of everything that's going on, and they even get to this piece at the end where all of these different bad people that were fighting her at different points in time throughout the movie, they all come back. And it's not a spoiler again, it's multiverses, they're all showing up, but she finds a new way to fight them with inspiration from her husband. And this is all happening from the beginning of the movie where her husband's thinking about presenting her with divorce papers because she has just kind of turned into, she won't talk to him. She won't speak to anybody in a sense. She's very to herself. And so, they work on their relationship, and you see universes where they're happy together, universes where they're not happy together, and where they never met, or where they, her daughter's doing this or doing that. And it was really cool. And like I said, the movie ended. There's even a bit in the movie where it ended early. And I, for half a second, was like, there's no possible way this movie is over right now. Credits are rolling and all this stuff. But then it turns out that this was in the universe where Michelle Yeoh is an actress. And that whole piece of the movie was part of the performance. Absolutely nuts. Like I said, it's insane. It is everything, everywhere, all at once, all in your face. I will be shocked if this movie does not get nominated for something next year. I'll be absolutely shocked. I would assume my bets would be film editing 100%, directing, best picture, writing, actress, actor, and probably a supporting actor too. I'd put it for Jamie and for Stephanie as well as the daughter, for reasons that you'll have to see in the movie. But it just, like I said, this movie hit home for me. It was fantastic. I really want to go see it again. I know I'll probably buy it on a physical copy when it comes out as soon as possible. But again, hopefully this was enough to get you guys excited. You've got raccoons, you've got multiverses, you've got hot dogs for fingers, you've got rocks with googly eyes on them. And you also have, again, some of the best action that you will ever see. And that is not hyperbole. The action in this movie is nuts. absolutely insane. So please, like I said, go support this film in theaters. It's not streaming anywhere. And I get that it's 2.5 hours long, but if you were bummed that Doctor Strange dropped and it's only 2 hours and 6 minutes long, go see this movie with a little extra time. So you won't be disappointed. But that is where we are going to wrap up on the show. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'm really excited. I got to do this unboxing, and I'm going to be diving into these comics a little bit later. If you can, go check out 12 Angry Men, Everything Everywhere All at Once. If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, that's on Apple TV Plus. And then check out some of those comics on Marvel Unlimited. Next week, I'm hoping that we're going to be able to talk about it. Just depends on if I'm able to go see it. The new what is it, Secrets of Dumbledore, Fantastic Beasts movie. I have a mixed relationship with those films. I really liked the first one, the first Fantastic Beasts movie. The Crimes of Grindelwald, the buildup of that movie was much more exciting than the actual film, because I think we can all agree, and I will say it publicly, that his crimes are absolutely heinous, and some of the worst crimes that we've ever seen are those of Grindelwald. So to hopefully have that dealt with, I know Mads Mikkelsen is playing Grindelwald now. He should have been Grindelwald always. I think our buddy Ed just went and saw it and said the same thing. So I'm hoping it's good. I saw IGN gave it a less than stellar review, but I love Harry Potter, so I've been really enjoying this kind of behind the scenes look at the prior prequels, I guess you could. I don't even know what you're going to call them anymore, but it'll be exciting. We'll see. I'm going to try to see that, and that'll be what we talk about next Tuesday. But oh no way, guys! My younger brother Joey, and look at that. We got Dumbledore's castle. Grindelwald is evil. This is my younger brother Joey. Joey, thanks so much for tuning into the live stream. Here we go. This is what I was trying to get at, everybody. Most of us wouldn't touch crimes with a 10-foot pole, but Grindelwald. Watch out, because he'll get you. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to Comics and Cinema. I'm your host, Alex Klein, and we will see you at the movies.